Greetings, my name is Monty Martin.
And I'm Kelly McLaughlin.
And we are the Dungeon Dudes. And welcome to our subclass tier ranking for the Monk in the 2024 Player's Handbook for 5th edition.
We are going to be going over all 4 of the Monk subclasses available in the 2024 PHB, and we are going to be ranking them based on our system from S, A, B, C, or D. We're going to be doing a deep dive into all of the abilities that the subclasses get and talking about them in depth. There's a lot to discuss today, so let's get rolling.
If you're a dungeon master looking to run an online game, you should check out this week's sponsor, Shard Tabletop.
Shard Tabletop is a virtual tabletop, character sheet, campaign manager, and marketplace with the perfect tools to run your game and create homebrew.
You can dive right in with the complete 5th edition SRD on any device you own. It's a great VTT for those who want to play on mobile or tablets.
You can play or GM for free with tokens for over 300 monsters and a set of starter adventures. The platform makes it so easy to add your own custom materials and homebrew.
You can subscribe to Shard Tabletop for as little as $19.99 per year to unlock additional races, classes, spells, feats, backgrounds, and much more. There's great content from Kobold Press and other amazing independent publishers available on the platform.
You can use our custom link in the description below to get a 3-month free trial with the Game Master subscription. So make sure to check the links below to get started on Shard Tabletop today.
So, kicking things off, let's go over the criteria that Kelly and I use when we rank the subclasses. Of course, we have our own biases based on the way that we play the game, so this is our perspective, so always, disclaimer there. We look at all pillars of play, though, when we consider the subclasses, although most of the Monk subclass features are pretty combat-focused, almost exclusively.
Yeah.
Although some of them have some, light exploration features, and Monks I don't think any of the subclasses really have any social...
The social pillars are really in play here.
Yeah. And so we generally don't factor in multiclassing too much into our rankings, but we do try to think of things from level 1 to 20 in an organic context.
If you look at our rankings, the S tier we reserve for the subclasses that stand head and shoulders above all of the others. The S tier is for the obvious choice. If you're looking at the subclasses, this is the one that's going to be the best choice. In some cases, could even be game-breaking or problematic if they're too powerful.
An S-tier subclass is basically saying to all the other ones, anything you can do, I can do better. And generally is pushing the power envelope of the game pretty hard. In contrast, A-tier is where we want to see most subclasses land, because this is a subclass that builds on the strength and has lots of synergy with the base class, other feats, skills, spells, and everything, and it gives you strong benefits that apply in a wide variety of adventuring situations. It's strong, it's good, it's just not dominant in the way that an S-tier option is.
When we come to B-tier, B-tier is also an excellent place for a subclass to land. They can excel in the right campaign, or depending on the build or the party composition or the DM. Oftentimes when we give something a B, it's because there are factors at play that might determine whether or not this subclass is excelling. In most cases, though, they are going to do well in most pillars of play. Sometimes the A or S tier is just going to outright beat them in certain categories, but there is always the chance that in the exact right circumstances, a B tier subclass can jump up to S tier.
C tier is where we get really lukewarm on things. This is often where we see niche features which rarely come up in play unless a specific build or combination is used. Oftentimes there is a high opportunity cost involved, which requires some sort of trade-off to function, or ultimately, if something is just mid, it's just meh, and it's kind of never going to be amazing, but it's not detracting away terrible, that's when it kind of lands in the C tier for us.
And D tier is when we do find something that does detract from the base class. Maybe it doesn't synergize well. Maybe the abilities contradict each other. And if we give something a D tier, this generally means that we don't recommend playing the subclass.
Something is broken, but in the other way from S tier. It's like, this doesn't really work.
Yeah.
So let's kick things off with the Warrior of Mercy.
Warrior of Mercy is sort of your doctor monk hybrid. You have the ability to harm and the ability to heal, and this comes into play right away at 3rd level with their 2 abilities, Hand of Harm and Hand of Healing. With Hand of Harm, once per turn, when you hit a creature with an unarmed strike, you can spend a focus point to deal extra necrotic damage equal to the martial arts die plus wisdom.
So this is Monk Smite.
Monk Smite. And similarly, the Hand of Healing, which you also get at the same level, allows you to use a magic action and spend 1 focus point to touch a creature and heal an amount equal to your martial arts die plus wisdom modifier. You can also replace an unarmed strike with this heal by replacing an attack. So you could punch an enemy and heal a friend if they're both nearby.
You also get a level 3 proficiency in Insight, Medicine, and the Herbalism kit. These are Insight's cool. Medicine is a very niche skill. Herbalism can be cool for some of the new crafting rules.
I mean, honestly, I'm okay with a ribbon feature next to 2 other great features. I think Hand of Harm and Hand of Healing, they really do define the subclass. I think that both are extremely useful, and this is the only monk that has healing for the party. There's one other monk that can heal itself, but this one, if you have no healer in the party, but you have this monk, at least you have something.
Now, at level 6, you get Physician's Touch. This boosts both Hand of Healing and Hand of Harm. Hand of Harm now applies the poison condition for 1 round to the target. This is a poison with no saving throw.
Yeah.
I should add. Poison is a pretty brutal condition. It's disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks.
And
so
it's insane that at 6th level you can just poison people.
Hand of Healing now removes blinded, deafened, paralyzed, poisoned, and stunned when you use it. So it's now like lesser restoration on a stick.
Yeah.
On a fist.
So you have a fist that, you have a fist that has greater restoration and a fist of poison.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And I actually think that that's such a cool ability. And level 6 is still right in the middle of play.
And then we augment this again at level 11 with the Flurry of Healing and Harm. And so now, basically, the way that it works is that if you Flurry of Blows, every single Flurry of Blows, and this is at level 11, so you're making 3 attacks, every single one of your flurries is a Hand of Healing. So that means that you're doing essentially 3D, at this level, 3d10 plus 3d10 plus 3 times your wisdom modifier and healing if you want to. Or you can put Hand of Harm in one of your Flurry of Blows without expending extra focus.
Which also now means that you're poisoning without using a focus point.
Yeah, you're basically double dipping. Like before level 11, you spend 1 focus point to Flurry of Blows and then another focus point to add the Hand of Harm to it. So you're now getting you're getting a 2-for-1 special. Yeah. And then at level 17, 5 focus points to bring someone back to life.
You basically have Revivify. Also on a stick.
Yeah. Little late in the game for bringing people back to life, but
you know what? Our characters didn't really die until around then anyway, so it happens. It happens at high level play.
This is a really good subclass.
There's nothing bad here. Yeah. You have a monk who inherently has the ability to boost up their damage. Great. On top of that, though, you also have the ability to heal your allies, something that no other monk can do. So you're adding to what we want the monk to do, as well as giving them a secondary option.
And I think a very interesting thing about this monk too is that many monks don't have what I would call a focus dump. So with any, let's say that you're, a level 10 monk and the rest of your party is like, guys, we need to take a short rest because I'm a fighter. I want my action surge back. I'm a warlock. I want my spells back. But you still have 5 focus points. Most monks have nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
But now your party's going into a short rest. You're like, I'm going to dump the rest of my focus points into healing the rest of the party because all those are coming back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So so this is actually where we get like an out of combat use for your focus points, which very few monks actually have. And it's really nice when it's combined with a short rest because that's when you want the healing anyways.
And as you gain levels, the fact that you can also remove debilitating effects and then revive allies, I know that's at very high levels, but still the fact that by peak level, you can fix most detrimental problems to your party,
Yep.
including death.
And fundamentally, we got basically the extra necrotic damage that you get is almost like a full-on extra attack in terms of the damage, right? Because it's a roll of your martial arts die plus your wisdom. So it's right from level 3, you basically just got an extra attack worth of damage, which is kind of one of the biggest damage boosts that we see across all the monk subclasses. So for me, the question is this A plus or is this S? Because here's what I come down to with this. The healing is really good and really renewable. In fact, I think in a lot of cases, I think that the Warrior of Mercy is going to provide more than enough healing to a party.
I mean, most of the time, the healing you actually need is healing word when somebody goes down.
And the monk is mobile enough to do that.
They don't need to do it at range, but they can run in, get somebody back up, and based on the core monk abilities, eventually you do have options of like running in and like taking somebody with you when you step on the wind.
Yes. So I think that there's some interesting things there in terms of their interactions. Still, healing at range is something that you would want, but I think that this is plenty of healing.
Yeah.
And it's a tangible damage boost. Basically, every subclass feature is building on Hand of Healing and Hand of Harm, so they just get better, right? Like, I love this as a subclass because, in terms of its design, because it gives you your core abilities right away at level 3. And then the rest of the subclass is spent on making those core abilities, that core mechanic comes online right away and it just gets better.
This is peak subclass design in my term. Because not only does it give you your core abilities, but they're simple abilities. They're easy to understand, they're easy to implement, and then they just keep getting better.
Yeah, and they synergize, and the way that all these features are worded is like, because you're able to Hand of Healing and Hand of Harm in place of making attacks or as an augmentation to your attacks, you're able to weave them in where they're needed while still doing other things. That's what's really cool about the subclass too, is you're still this monk is simultaneously beating people up while healing its allies and doing the honestly, the spot removal on the conditions is much more impactful in combat than it is the healing. Like, for me, the Hand of Healing to remove paralyze and stunned and poison, those 3 conditions are 3 of the worst conditions that can happen to a player character in combat. And the fact that this monk can just come up to you and be like, have some hit points and get out of old monster is amazing.
I think that this is an A, but I want to say A with there's a little note here that I want to say. I think this is an A because it is not leagues above the other monk subclass.
I agree.
And it doesn't break anything. It's not too powerful.
No.
But I also want to point out that I think the Warrior of Mercy is the template that any third-party designers out there should look at as how to design a subclass. This is an excellent subclass in terms of design philosophy. I just think that the Warrior of Mercy is like everything that I strive to be when I'm designing a subclass for any class in the game. So it's S tier in design principle. Mm-hmm. It is an A tier subclass, which again is exactly where we want it to be.
I definitely say it's A plus for me. We've tried to be more restrained lately with how often we put something in the S tier. Because like, I don't think that there's anything about the subclass that is super dominant. There's nothing about the subclass that me as a DM, I'm going to go, how do I deal with this?
And also when you look at the other subclasses that it's being compared to, there are other ones that I still would consider picking instead of Warrior of Mercy, which means the Warrior of Mercy isn't like, you got to take Warrior of Mercy because it's easily the best. It's extremely good at what it does, and if this is the playstyle you're going for, this is the right choice. Yeah,
I definitely think that this is where you because this monk probably wants to be running around a lot more. I don't think you're going to be going for like a grappler build with this one either. I think this is definitely the place where you go for the feats that are going to give you extra mobility, like speedy, and things like that, and just rock it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Next up, we come to the Warrior of Shadows, my personal favorite,
which you have played in a long-running campaign.
I'm an edgelord player. We all know that.
Yep.
Lots of cool abilities here if you are into the shadowy sort of playstyle for the monk. And when I mean shadowy, I mean if you like to stick into the darkness, teleport around, do some damage. Let's see what they get. So first of all, at 3rd level, you're going to get shadow arts. This is going to give you dark vision. If you already had dark vision, your dark vision's better. You also gain the minor illusion cantrip. You can have a lot of fun.
In the game.
Yeah, we love minor illusion.
You spend 1 focus point to cast darkness without components. You can see in the darkness, and you can move it 60 feet at the start of each of your turns. So here's a key thing with this magic action, okay? Is darkness is a spell you do have to concentrate on. So now this is putting concentration into play as a monk. But it lasts 10 minutes, and you can move it around. So this means that it's easy enough that you can cast the darkness blob and just have this, like, blob of darkness friend following you.
Yeah, and as long as you are in the darkness, your concentration does get a little bit of a boost here in the way of all of the enemies having disadvantage against you, unless they have something like blind sight or true sight or any of that nonsense. But most enemies are going to have disadvantage against you, and you have advantage against them. Yeah. So really great for beating up a blob of enemies. And this gets even better with your 6th level feature, Shadow Step. Because in dim light or darkness, you can now teleport 60 feet as a bonus action to an unoccupied space that is also in dim light or darkness. You then get advantage on the next melee attack you make after you teleport. One thing to point out, you can teleport 60 feet. You can move your darkness 60 feet. I feel like this is very much on purpose that these two things line up.
Synergy. Basically, you get to move you can either move your darkness to you so that you don't, like, it's either the darkness is where you want to go,
or the darkness is where you are.
Is where you are. Yeah.
So if there's a spot of darkness you want to teleport to, but you're in bright light, you move the darkness over top of you, and you can now teleport to the darkness that you wanted to get to. If you are in the shadows, and there's a bunch of enemies standing in the light, you can drop darkness on them and then teleport into it.
Yeah.
So, and then you get advantage. I mean, if you're dropping darkness, you already had advantage. You get the idea, though. You can still gain advantage in other situations.
And and in any situation where you are in dim light or darkness, you're just bamfing everywhere like Nightcrawler.
Yeah.
Level 11 improves Shadow Step. So if you're not in dim light and darkness, you can spend 1 focus point to remove that requirement. And then you also get to make an unarmed strike as part of that movement, which is pretty cool because, Shadow Step is competing with a lot of monk bonus actions as it is, right? But now we're also getting damage as part of that, which is coming with advantage.
Yeah.
So I like it.
And finally, at 17th level, we get Cloak of Shadows. As a magic action, you can spend 3 focus points in dim light or darkness to shroud yourself in shadow for 1 minute. Or until you're incapacitated or end your turn in bright light. So you don't like bright light areas. Yeah. Well shrouded, you are invisible. You're partially incorporeal, which means that you can actually move through solid objects. And you can flurry of blows without spending any focus points. I like this ability.
So if the combat lasted for 3 rounds, flurry of blows paid for itself.
Yeah. And not only that, but like your ability to be invisible. Now you don't even need darkness. You're just invisible.
No, you still might want a Shadow Step, but like this is a pretty nice capstone.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
So I love this subclass. I loved it in 2014. But it had some major flaws, and all of those flaws have been addressed here. The only reason why this subclass isn't S tier in my books is because the entire subclass hinges on the availability of darkness. Now, in most campaigns, having played as Shadow Monk from level 1 to 17, you let me do the cool things, and I think most DMs will. I was doing things like sliding under a table and then bamfing to a dark corner.
Or like teleporting between people's shadows.
Yeah. So like if you're a DM out there, don't shut down your Shadow Monk trying to do the cool things, because the cool things are what makes the subclass fun. Let them teleport from shadow to shadow. Let there be lights that have shadows. Occasionally, if you want to thwart them in a combat encounter too, you throw them in bright lights. But if you are touring in the middle of the day, there were a lot of times where like I had to be really, really crafty to use my abilities.
Yeah, so here's kind of my like high level analysis of this. This subclass takes Monk's mobility and turns it up to 11.
Yeah.
But I would say that Monk's the baseline Monk already is an incredibly mobile class.
Out of all classes, their mobility is already at an 11.
Yeah. So because the monks can dash as a bonus action.
Yeah.
Already, right? And they have the ability inherently with Step of the Wind and Patient Defense to disengage, dodge, dash at the same time. So like monks inherently have a lot of ways to spend their bonus action to get additional movement combined and safe movement.
Yeah.
So this subclass is giving you one more way of moving that is a 60-foot teleport with some restrictions. What's interesting about it is that how much more mobile than a baseline monk is the Shadow Monk.
Having played it, I can tell you that there were circumstances where there were too many enemies for me to even weave through. There wasn't enough space, and disengaging wasn't the appropriate thing to do with my bonus action.
I'm not here to undersell how powerful a 60-foot teleport is.
Good.
Like, what I am just saying is that like a monk, it's not really hard for a monk to cover 60 feet with their bonus action. So you do kind of get to this point where like you go, did you need to teleport over there or not?
No.
Right? But
if we want to talk about damage boosting, though, this doesn't have a direct damage boost, but it does have a damage boost in the way that if you do drop darkness and punch 4 enemies or 1 enemy 4 times with advantage, your chances of dealing more damage is much higher. It is.
That also comes with the downside of your party being really furious with you for putting the enemy in darkness, so now their attacks have disadvantage.
You can still drop a fireball into darkness.
Sure, but they still have to, like, and it's better, of course, if your party members can build around it, like you got a warlock with Devil's Sight and things like that. But I still think that this is kind of like what I think the reasons why I would say that this is not A tier is the DM can shut you down. And sometimes the DM can just shut you down incidentally. Like, if you are outdoors on a bright day, which is not necessarily a rare adventuring scenario, you're kind of like, where did my
Is there a rock nearby that's large? Is there a fence, a wagon?
I feel like even during our campaign, because our campaign was Red Hand of Doom, so there was a lot of, like, battles outdoors in a field.
Yeah.
Right? And so I feel like I definitely let you get away with some things where I was like, sure, Kelly, sure, right?
And I appreciate it.
I
refuse to give this lower than an A.
I'm giving it an A.
Okay.
I'm giving it an A.
I'm happy.
I'm just pointing out that there are things with the subclass that like definitely the DM environmental factor is a factor. And you could a monk is still very mobile anyways as it is. And then there's also the party gets annoyed at you for putting the enemy in darkness.
Here's my argument for why it's still A, even though all of your points are valid.
My points are why it's not S.
Yeah, fair. You could argue that it could be B because it is dependent on the DM's interpretation of light and shadows and where they decide to put them. But I would argue that any DM who says that there's no shadows in any given situation is a bad DM, and that unless there's a situation orchestrated. But if you're in the middle of the day in broad daylight and there are trees and there are hills, and there is a wagon, and there is a house. Everything casts a shadow.
Kelly, we wrote an entire adventure that occurs in an underground sun where there were rooms in the adventure that were so light characters.
And that is
and there were no shadows in that environment.
And that is the one, no, and I know that. Like, if I was out in the middle of the day and they're in like a town square and the DM was like, there's no shadows for you to teleport.
Totally.
I'd be like, you're wrong.
I get that. And I would say that the subclass as well, it comes in with its, like the darkness, the fact that you can move the darkness around and that you can teleport to it, and the fact that you can spend the focus point to get past that. The subclass builds in its own solutions to that too.
Yeah.
But it's still, it's not a non-factor.
It's enough of a factor for it not to be S. It's not enough of a factor for it to be B.
Yeah.
A.
All right. The Warrior of the Elements. I'm already saying right off the bat, this is the candidate for the biggest single glow up from 2014 to 2024.
Yep.
Yep. So this is a very different subclass too from what it used to be. First, level 3, Elemental Attunement. You spend a focus point to imbue yourself with the power of the elements. Lasts for 10 minutes or until you're incapacitated. While you're imbued, your unarmed strikes have their reach increased by 10 feet, which gives your base reach 15 feet. And I'm just going to say, if another person in the comments says, play a bugbear, I'm going to tear my hair out. I know bugbears exist, but yes, they have the reach. Bugbear monk with a 20-foot reach. There you go. We said it. You can also deal acid, cold, fire, or lightning damage with your unarmed strikes, and anyone that you hit with your unarmed strikes. This is not limited in times per turn, too.
No.
Strength save or be pushed or pulled 10 feet.
This also means that you can grapple creatures from a distance. We had to look into D&D Beyond. There's an article that actually specifies that it describes using this ability for grapples.
Yes, and holding them at bay.
And holding them at bay. So we found that, and so the ruling that we are deciding is that you can punch, and with using your flurry of blows, you could like punch a target, and then with your next attack, you could grab them. Now you're grappling them, and now you're holding them at 15 feet, unless they have a really, really reachable weapon, which most don't even reach 15 feet. You can hold them there and continue to punch them.
Yeah.
And they can't do anything about it. So really cool. This is the grappler build here.
Yeah.
At level 3, you also get Manipulate Elements. You learn the Elementalism spell.
Level 6, you get to throw elemental bursts. It's 2 focus points, and you throw a 20-foot radius sphere within 120 feet, which is basically fireball size and range. And the damage is equal to 3 rolls of your martial arts die to the targets that fail a dexterity saving throw. So the damage on this, your martial arts die at level 6 is a d8. So it's 3d8 damage. So it's nowhere near a fireball. In terms of its damage.
But it's a cool AoE of elemental damage that, like, if you have grouped together enemies, punching 4 times for d8 damage is cool, but hitting like a group of enemies.
Oh yeah. And you can still flurry of blows.
Yeah.
After this,
so you could drop your ice bomb and then run in and punch.
Level 11, when your elemental attunement is active, you just get to fly and swim. You get to fly and swim speed. Amazing. And level 17, when it's active, the elemental attunement, you get resistance to an elemental damage type of your choice that you can change every turn. You deal extra elemental damage equal to your martial arts die once per turn, and you get extra movement when you step of the wind and deal damage to everybody that you move past. It's kind of like the blazing trail.
I want to mention here that when I first read this, I was tempted to give it an S. I did have to correct myself on that, because I think the reason why I got excited to give it an S
is it's so much better than
is
what it used to be.
Compared to the 2014 Element Monk. This was so much better that I just got excited and wanted to give it the best marks. Having examined that and checked myself, I don't think it's leagues better than the other 2 that we've already seen. No. I do think that all 3 of these have offered a unique and diverse play style and theme that are all viable. Yeah. So I do think that this is also an A, and this is your peak grappler build.
I agree. I think, again, I love this because, it absolutely nails the fantasy of the elemental anime warrior, whether that is Avatar: The Last Airbender or a Z fighter from Dragon Ball, or many other examples that I'm sure people can list. It's awesome for that reason, because you get to throw the elemental fireballs, you get to fly, and you get to feel like the elements are whipping around you. When you combine this with the grappler and the tavern brawler feats, and other features that are available to the class, you get someone with a lot of battlefield control, because you're pushing and pulling people around, you're grabbing them, you can knock them prone with your unarmed strikes. It's slick. And it comes online, like the core thing of it, the grappler build comes online right away at level 3. And then you just get this lovely, you get to fly at level 11, which I think is, for me, it's the biggest like exploration boost, but it's also a great combat boost.
I mean, not to mention you can fly and hold people at 15 feet and either bring them up with you and drop them or throw them into area of effect stuff. Between the 3 subclasses that we looked at, it is kind of, if you want to look at it, we have the skirmisher healer, the infiltrator, and the grappler.
Yeah.
All very well defined.
All very well defined. All excellent. All A.
All A.
I think. I really think that this is one of those places where I look at these 3 monk subclasses and I go, which one do I want to play? And I have a hard time deciding which one excites me the most.
Yeah.
And that I think is the best thing. Like, this is the type of choice that every class should have. Because none of these 3 truly can be, I don't think you can truly say that any one of them is head and shoulders better than the others, because every one of them has a very unique focus. Every one of them has a focus that is useful and relevant in so many common adventuring scenarios.
Yeah.
All of them have builds to offer. They have things that they can offer their party. There's the Shadow Monk is the only one that potentially is probably the hardest to make it work because of the darkness thing. I think that all A+ for the Warrior of the Elements for me.
I'll go with an A, yeah.
Yeah. So finally we come to the Warrior of the Open Hand. This one gives you the open hand technique. So when you hit with Flurry of Blows, you can choose to push, topple, or addle, which is no opportunity attacks for that target.
That essentially feels like this is the only monk that actually gets weapon masteries, but they're built into their fists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is cool. We love weapon masteries and the ability to push.
I would love to have seen a monk subclass that maybe when they redo the Kensei will get weapon mastery.
Yeah, or maybe, if we were designing subclasses. At level 6, you get Wholeness of Body. You can heal yourself as a bonus action, and you can heal yourself an amount equal to your martial arts die plus your wisdom modifier.
Basically second wind.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You can use this a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier per day. But yeah, essentially monk second wind. So this monk has weapon masteries and second wind. Interesting. At a level 11, you're going to get Fleet Step. I really like this feature. You get to use Step of the Wind anytime that you use another bonus action feature. So that means that if you Flurry of Blows, you can also Step of the Wind. Any bonus action that you can do, you can also Step of the Wind. And just adding Step of the Wind is like, you can do it too. It's just great.
It's actually a lot of mobility.
Yeah.
While doing a lot of damage. And that's where I actually have to go back to, like, the comparison to the Shadow Monk being like, oh, the Shadow Monk can't teleport and Flurry Blows. They do get the one attack. But here you get that giant dash along with all the...
I still think teleporting can't be understated.
True. Yeah. And this came online a lot later than the teleport did.
Yeah.
And then Quivering Palm, our famous 5-finger exploding heart technique, 4 focus points to cause vibrations, and then you end the vibrations as an action or by replacing an attack. And when you do, the target has to make a con save. Most targets are pretty good at their con saves. Or it's 10d12 force damage. The average of 10d12 is 65 damage.
Ouch.
Ow.
They do get a con save. Do they take half damage if they succeed?
Yeah, on a successful save, they still take half damage. So it's still going to be like 30 damage, which is probably more than you could have done with a single unarmed strike.
So here's the problem. I was thinking that this was a B because I found it a little bland in terms of compared to the other.
Bland.
Yeah,
I agree. It is kind of bland.
But is it worthy of B or is it still an A? Like, you have mobility. So, okay. Let's talk about what we want to do as a monk. We want to punch things a whole bunch. This one gets to add weapon masteries to their punches. This gives them battlefield control options. This gives them mobility
they're
options.
Knocking people prone. They're pushing people. I think they can make good use of the grappler features as well.
They can bolster up their own hit points if they need to. Adding Step of the Wind increases their mobility. Quivering Palm is pretty cool. It's not, in my opinion, actually the best. It's the most thematically awesome, but it's not the best
I mean,
17th level feature.
4 focus points.
Yeah.
In terms of the amount of damage that you can have now, right? Like, at this level, a flurry of blows is effectively giving you 2 extra attacks. So that is, and at this level, it's a D12 itself. So with 4 focus points, you could have bought yourself, over the course of 4 turns, 8 additional attacks, which would have been then 8d12 plus 8 times your dex modifier. So you're kind of, in terms of like the calculus, you're spending the 4 focus points to get the damage that you would have got with 4 rounds worth of flurry of blows effectively.
Well, technically, or I guess you can replace your next attack by exploding the heart. So I guess you could do it on the same turn. It is interesting that you're basically giving up one of your attacks
to explode their heart.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about this is that you could do it more than once per turn. There's no turn limit on it. So if you did want to with Quivering Palm,
you have 4 attacks, so you could Quivering Palm explode, Quivering Palm explode.
Yep. And then, and actually with Flurry of Blows, you have 5. So what you could do is set up the next Quivering Palm.
Stunning Strike, punch, explode, punch, explode.
That costs you 10 focus points.
Yeah, but I just exploded Strahd's heart. I mean, he has like legendary resistance and that.
Yeah.
But
like that's still a lot of damage. Like if they fail both saves, combined with the damage of the unarmed strikes that you are making, that is like ballpark 150 damage. But you did spend half your focus points to do it.
Okay, so but here's my question. B, we reserve for builds that are subclasses that require the right build, the right party composition, the right mix of elements in order to make it shine, or that just don't stand up to as good of a quality as the A or S tier.
Well, here's a couple things that I think bring this down. The push, the topple, and the addle of the open hand technique on your flurry of blows. There's enough feats in the game now between Tavern Brawler, between Grappler, between Crusher, that monks have access to.
Also, it's not like this is special for this subclass. If we want to talk about like the Elements monk could push people around.
Yes, the Elements monk gets to push people around.
And like
that is an example of being head and shoulders better.
I might take poisoning your enemy as a better option than pushing or toppling.
Yeah. Conceivably.
And I might take dropping darkness and punching everybody with advantage as slightly better than pushing or toppling.
And you could always say that like, oh, well, the open hand monk doesn't have to take those feats to get these things. It's just that those happen to also be like the best feats for a monk to take in general.
They're the feats that every monk is probably looking at feats that are going to offer those.
Like Grappler and Crusher and Tavern Brawler. So it's not that it's bad. It's just that like you might not it's not truly unique. The self-heal thing is good. I'll take it. It's not bad. The fleet step thing is a lot of mobility. Like I kind of feel with this open hand technique is like, okay, wholeness of body is like, fine, I'll take it. I'm not.
It actually, the wholeness of body, I'm sorry to people who love healing out there, but it actually feels like you get a really cool feature at 3rd level and you get a really cool feature at 11th level, and that's a long gap.
Well, and the like, I mean, also the wholeness of body healing, like you compare, it's self-healing only, and then you compare how much healing the Mercy Monk was bringing to the table for the whole party.
If I'm the Mercy Monk, can I punch myself in the face and heal myself?
Yes, because it's touch a creature.
Okay, so
and you are a creature. So yes, the Mercy Monk.
The Mercy Monk at 3rd level can has the ability to heal itself and allies.
Yes.
The open hand at 6th level gets to heal itself.
So like here's my thing. The open hand technique is like getting the kind of cool stuff that the Elements monk has. Wholeness of body is getting a self-heal like the Mercy Monk. Fleet step is kind of like playing with the Shadow Monk's mobility. And then Quivering Palm is like this crazy capstone that does a ton of damage. So the open hand monk is essentially flirting with a little bit of all the other subclasses, but when you mix it all together, it's like,
Okay, I want to give this a B, but it's like one of those Bs that's like there's no problem with playing the open hand
No,
monk.
there's no problem with it.
I do think that the other 3 subclasses are better defined. They have better archetypes. They have better thematic purpose within their abilities.
I guess my question is, what is the argument for it being A? Like, what is the argument for it being
My
A?
argument for it being A, which you've convinced me of B, but my argument for it being A is that it actually adds to the base class of monk in every way that you want a subclass to add to it. It gives you more to do when you're punching. It gives you the ability to heal. It gives you more mobility, and it gives you a super damage
but
kung
it's
fu
not
attack.
adding as much as the other subclasses, which we're giving A's to.
I agree.
So, like, in a world where we gave the elements, the shadow, and the mercy S, maybe the open hand is A.
Right, but none of them were really S. I'll give it a B. I'll give it a B with a thumbs up and saying, if you're out there being like, but open hand is my favorite, you're going to have a blast.
Yeah.
You're going to be fine. You're going to have a great time. Here's the thing about the open hand. Even with a B, the quivering palm technique is the most monk thematic move.
I mean, it is the Kill Bill move.
And
yeah.
Even though I like the other subclasses better, when you land that quivering palm and pull it off and murder the enemy and they just keel over in place, you're gonna feel good. I don't know if they keel over in place.
Their heart explodes.
Well, yeah, but I mean, even in Kill Bill, his heart exploded inside of him and he just kind of like flopped. Which I was always sad that we didn't get to see him go, and but you can imagine it any way you want. Maybe it does go pop and whatever, but it's so fun. So I still think I don't want to necessarily do a lot of comparisons from 2014 to 2024 in these videos because we are focusing on people who are playing the 2024 rules. But I do just want to say that as a monk fan for years, I can now stop feeling the shame of being a monk fan.
Yeah, I think monks are eating pretty good.
Monks are a really great class.
They have fasted for a long time, and I think that now they are feeling.
And there's no bad subclass to pick.
No, at the end of the day, none of these are bad. I think that they all do great things, and that is so much more than we could say from before. Like the biggest philosophical change that we see with this is that monks are so much more efficient with the use of their focus points.
Yeah.
And the subclasses now are building on, like, the subclasses are all now built in a way where they're like, yes, we know that the biggest thing you want to do as a monk is stun people and flurry of blows. So none of these subclasses are going to get in the way of your monk using stunning strike and flurry of blows.
They add additional options to add on top of those things.
Yes.
Which is great. And they influence the way that you're going to deliver those things.
Yes.
And that's excellent.
Yeah.
I love where the monks are. They might be amongst my favorite classes in the game.
Yeah.
Which, I know that I've always liked monks though. So the thing that warms my heart is that now you like monks.
Yeah. They're cool. I think I would probably be most excited to play an Elements Monk, personally. I've never enjoyed really playing healers, but I respect the Mercy Monk for what it is. And the Shadow Monk, the teleporting and the bamfing around doesn't excite me as much as flying and throwing fireballs.
That's fair.
Because I'm still, in my heart of hearts, I'm always a mage, and mages love flying and throwing fireballs. So I just want to always be able to fly and throw fireballs.
If you look up on screen right now, these are our final rankings. Again, I think that we're seeing the 2024 book really sell the fact that, like, it's well balanced. You can pick a subclass and be happy with that choice. And especially in the monks, I think that's relevant here. Tell us about your thoughts on the monk subclasses and which one you're most excited to play in the comments below.
The videos that we make on our channel are made possible thanks to the incredible generosity of our Patreon supporters. If you enjoy the work that we do here on YouTube, please consider becoming a supporter of the show by following the links down below.
If you want to see us playing some D&D, you can check out our actual play in the Worlds of Drakenheim, which airs Tuesday evenings right here on YouTube. You can check out all the previous episodes right up over here.
And we got plenty more tier rankings for all the subclasses in the 2024 PHB right up over here.
Please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and ring that bell so that you never miss an episode.
Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.
In the dungeon.